Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Tottenham Hotspur, always an adventure. Somehow, the adventure continues. I really don't know how, because in the first half in Marseille last night, I had no feeling that the Champions League adventure was going to continue. Yet here we are, talking about another one of those Tottenham Hotspur matches, which, weirdly, in the last three games, that VAR ruling out aside, Spurs just keep coming back. I don't know why. I don't know. One moment we think that they're mentally fragile and, I hate to use the expression that others use, Spursy. And then the next moment we're talking about a team that's actually shown a hell of a lot of mental resilience. It's just bizarre, honestly. I've literally just come from Stansted Airport, got off the plane, come back, get my thoughts out in a video. Loads of terrific Spurs fans at the airport and on the flight as well, telling me about their experiences after the match. I didn't realise at the time that they were all kept in for an hour and a half after the game. Because obviously we went down to the press conference. We were probably still there an hour and a half later. But yeah, I didn't realise that had happened. It took them a long time to get back, but as many of them said, thank goodness it ended all well. That's the kind of night when at least you can chat about a fantastic end to a match, whereas there's been other occasions when maybe, especially away from home in Europe in recent years, when you really don't want to have sat there for an hour and a half waiting to be allowed out of the stadium. But yeah, Tottenham Hotspur, you can see, still trying to process it. And apologies, I'm going to sound a bit bunged up. Having been used to rather nice weather in Marseille, to come back to pretty chilly, rainy weather here, my sinuses have decided they're going to have a bit of fun. So apologies, I'm going to sound a bit bunged up in this one. Where do I start? What a weird game. What a very strange match. But you know what? I guess probably the best place to start is I did feel it was utterly fitting that the night before Antonio Conte's 1 year anniversary as Tottenham Hotspur head coach, which is obviously now today, he was made to sit there and experience and suffer exactly what it's like to be a Tottenham Hotspur fan for the night. I did think that was very fitting, that he should be sitting there up in the stands, suspended, not literally suspended above the stands, but suspended from the game, and having to sit there. And I've seen loads of footage of him. There was one that didn't do him justice. I think after the first goal from Longley, the equaliser, he was quite... there wasn't a lot of emotion going on. There was a lot of emotion going on towards the end of the game, trust me. And at other points, I just thought, I don't know. Maybe it's slightly sadistic of me, but I love the fact that he had to experience what fans, like just to the side of him, were having to go for, just aside, a little bit further down that stand had to go through, and also the many watching from home. Maybe it'll give him a slightly different experience of what it's been like to watch Tottenham this season, because it's been a strange experience. And once again, we had a first half that came from the depths of hell. It was rubbish. Thank goodness for Spurs' fitness. Thank goodness for Marseille really not being particularly great in front of goal, because we have a second half that we can talk about with plenty of positives. And another ridiculous ending to a game. And he must have been very frustrated, Conte, out there. You've seen him on the touchline. He is a guy that wants to feel that he can kick every ball, influence everything with his voice, his instructions, his pointing, his shouting, everything. But to be up there, he was in like... I suppose you call them the posh seats, the director's box. He was up there with... who did I see in front of him? He had various directors up there. Matthew Collicott, I think, is the finance director. Rebecca Kappelhorn was up there as well. She's one of the directors. I saw... who else did I see? He was sitting next to Greta Steinson. Daniel Levy was kind of just in front and slightly to the left of him as well. It was all the... I guess the big wigs, the hierarchy, the powers that be. And here was a guy who is, I say he's not used to being up there, but he's been suspended a fair few times in his life, Conte, for red cards in games and stuff. Even at Inter, I think he had a fair few of those as well. So he probably is kind of used to it, but he doesn't like it. And you can tell. And Christian Stellini, after the game, said that. He's like, yeah, he probably used more energy up there than he actually did on the than he does on the touchline. He was not having it. And yeah, he got to watch a match that was, again, a first half full of nerves, I felt, littered with mistakes. Again, I've said this before, but I'm sorry to sound repetitive, but I saw it again in the first half. A team full of so much experience, Champions League final experience for quite a few of those players, let alone group stage games, players that have played in the biggest club and country games. They literally looked like it was their debut. I don't know why I'm using literally a lot. That's a really weird use of the word. I sound like a teenager. But yeah, I don't understand where that first half performance comes from. I don't understand it one moment. And, you know, we couldn't really get a great view of Conte. We're kind of aware of where he was from the press box. But obviously we had a screen where we could see BT. It was like a Champions League feed. It wasn't BT, obviously, because it was in France. But it was the Champions League feed. So occasionally we would see them cut to Conte. And you could see him going through the whole gamut of emotions down there next to Steinerson. And what he had was, if you're wondering how they did it, how he's not allowed directly to speak to the team. He wasn't. So he wasn't allowed to be in the changing room, dressing room before or after during the game. He wasn't allowed to be on the touchline, of course. He wasn't allowed to be in the tunnel area. He wasn't allowed to directly communicate with his players or the coaching staff in the dugout. I think on the way he was in the coach, so he did a team talk on the coach with the players. And then that was pretty much it. Other than, I noticed one of the fitness coaches, Constantino Conati, was up there, sat on the other side of Greta Steinerson. Greta Steinerson's the performance director, if you're not aware of. He's like Fabio Paratici's number 2. Paratici was down in the dugout, as he often is for these games. And you could see that Conte was shouting something, saying something, and Karate was constantly writing down everything, saying like kind of, I don't know, like some secretary in kind of an office meeting. And clearly those instructions were all taken downstairs at some point to the coaches that were filling in. And, you know, I think the best thing, the fortunate thing for Conte is that he did have men that he could trust in to carry out his words and his actions and what he would normally do. Obviously, he's known Christian Stellini for, I think you're looking at around a decade. Worked with him at Juventus as a coach, worked with him at Inter Milan as well. And Ryan Mason, who Conte's a big Ryan Mason fan. He was impressed with Mason literally the moment he walked in the door, really. If you remember, he wasn't technically allowed to take the first training session. I think it was on the day. It might have even been the second day as well. So Ryan Mason had to take the sessions. And from what I understand, Conte was really impressed with what he saw. And the players, you know, he's got the players' respect as well. So, and even Stellini name-checked him before the game and said, you know, I've got Ryan Mason to lean on as well. Because whatever you want to say about Ryan Mason's little caretaker charge kind of spell, for a 29-year-old, he was relatively pretty successful in what he did. Of course, he lost the Carabao Cup final to Man City 1-0 with a late goal. And yes, it wasn't one of those performances for the ages. But I'd say time will look back on that and think, do you know what? That whole little spell he did was quite good. Very good for a 29-year-old for me. But it's just my opinion. I do think he'll go on to be a very good manager. Maybe at Tottenham one day. But yeah, so whatever was said at half-time after that rubbish first half, well, obviously, you saw what happened in the first half. Obviously, Marseille got their goal. I still haven't seen, because we didn't get great replays of everything up where we were. So I still haven't seen a second showing of the ball going out. For Ryan Sessegnon shepherding the ball out for what he thinks is a goal kick. Apparently the linesman flagged for the goal kick or pointed for a goal kick, and the referee overruled him and gave a corner. I haven't seen an actual anything of that. Literally, the only clip I saw was Ryan Sessegnon being annoyed and from a distance. I haven't seen close up where there is any touch, but certainly Sessegnon was pretty annoyed. But what Marseille did, which was clever and also poor reaction from Spurs, was that they took the corner kick really quickly. So again, maybe people moaning about it, and Chancellor Mbemba at the back post heads it in, kind of levelling up. I guess he was sent off, wasn't he, in the home game for Spurs? Not for Spurs, home game for Spurs. So Spurs didn't have their first shot at goal until the 7th minute of added time. There was a lot of added time because of Sonny. We'll talk about Sonny in a little bit. And 52 minutes for your first shot at goal, which was a Kane one, tipped over by Pau Lopez, former Tottenham goalkeeper for the season on loan. Pau Lopez. They were just rubbish. They were rubbish. I'll go through some of the stats and things and why they're rubbish in that first half. But what was key was what happened at half-time in that dressing room, because there were stern words said. Let's put it that way. No player would really admit exactly what was said, which is fine. That's good that it kind of remains in the dressing room, I think. Clement Lenglet would only say important words were said. Harry Kane admitted that Stellini, Mason, and Hugo Lloris kind of said a lot of rousing words and home truths, as it were, to get the mentality changed, I think. And it was a big 15 minutes for Spurs, because they did. They came out a lot very different. And quite interestingly, Stellini said after the game that he kind of channeled his inner Conte as he was walking out down the tunnel. I've got his quote here somewhere. I've written it down. I was coming into the dressing room. I was coming into the dressing room, and I was thinking how Antonio would speak now, and I did it with all of my energy and my thoughts. And we are here now to celebrate. Also, thanks to Antonio, because I learned lessons, a lot of lessons from him, and this evening I used them. So that was nice. Teaching moment, even for, I think he's 47 years old. Shows you can keep learning. Everyone can keep learning. And Harry Kane said, there were a few words said by a few people at half-time that we did have to be more aggressive, have more intensity, and I think we came out in the second half and we did that. And they did. They did the trick, because I think we all, including Conte up in the stands, saw those same underperforming experienced stars show exactly that they were experienced. There's a lot of game management, I felt. Look, don't get me wrong. Said Kolasinac heads that ball home, everything changes. But on the whole, I actually felt they managed the second half quite well. I'm trying to think if Hugo Lloris even made a save in the second half. The only ones I can remember him making were the two in the first half from Sanchez and Vetu. I think that was it. So technically they managed that reasonably well. And you know what? Like I said about the mentality thing earlier, we can moan to our heart's delight about the first half and even the overall performance if you wanted to. But the mentality shown to go to a stadium like that, and it's difficult. Maybe I think those who were there, and this is not to dismiss people watching on telly, but it's just I don't know how it conveyed and how it came across on TV, the atmosphere. It was hostile. It was up there with among the toughest I've seen for a Spurs away game. Obviously the Spurs fans were like ferried in on buses straight into the. I think they went underneath the stadium, whereas the media, very kindly of UEFA, organised that the media entrance. We had to walk essentially from the metro station right through all of the Marseille fans outside, essentially beginning their preparations to be rather hostile. Not towards us. I must stress that no one gave us any problems at any time, and I didn't actually see any problems. Although some of the Spurs fans were telling me there was some minor little stuff going on. I think after the game, it was after the celebrations. I think. I should say I don't know whether that's involved the police, whether that was. I saw some video footage of maybe the police being a little bit heavy-handed, perhaps with. Some of the fans who were just celebrating, they're up against the fence. I guess giving it to the Marseille fans, as football fans do to one another. But certainly not worthy of getting whacked with a baton, as I saw in this video. Where was I? Yes, but we had to walk through the Marseille fans outside the stadium, and they were thousands of them out there. They were, I guess, brilliant, you could say. As fans, they were singing away. They were getting themselves pumped up. They were letting off fireworks. They like their fireworks, despite the fact that, it hasn't boded well for them in the past, especially with poor Frankfurt fan that got hit by one, I think, which is why we had the North Stand closed in the stadium. And they do like their fireworks the night before, trying to put them off a couple of times outside the Spurs hotel. But Spurs were kind of ready for that. They knew it was going to happen, so it didn't really impact them too much. Funnily enough, pretty much the main occasions when fans have tried to do that to Spurs, the other main one was Ajax. Spurs have dramatically won the games. So the moral to the story is, don't bother doing the fireworks, lads. It actually, if anything, helps Spurs somehow mentally. But yeah, it was an experience out there. They weren't just letting off normal fireworks as well. There was some of those, but there was like these big cannon noises almost. These huge explosion noises, which were low down, as if they were throwing them on the floor. Poor John Veal from the PA who was out there. As we were walking along, I did a video, and I think I may have got him swearing towards the end of it, because one exploded right next to us, and he let out a stream of expletives, did John. And yeah, it wasn't. If you're coming in there as the opposition or away fans, God knows what would have happened if they had been kind of introduced into that atmosphere. But it was hostile stuff, and it continued into the stadium, because, like I say, although they had the North Stand closed, that was about 13,000 seater. There were still 54,000 or so fans in the stadium, and they just made it this intimidating atmosphere. Hugo Lloris came out with, was it Brandon Austin and Fraser Forster, with the goalkeeping coaches, and they came out and honestly, the boos, and the stadium was only, I'd say, a third full at that point. The boos were so loud. I was sat next to John Veal up in the press box. We could barely hear each other while trying to talk. It was that loud. That was from a third full stadium. And even Lloris admitted afterwards that he felt alone out there, because obviously he's a Frenchman out there as well. And yeah, Marseille, that they was he former Lyon and Nice? Yeah, they're obviously not the biggest fans. And yeah, so that was that was something. And then when the rest of the squad came out to warm up, it just got even louder and louder. And throughout the game, it was like that. They were jeering everything that Spurs did wrong, and it did. I think it contributed that first half, but I suppose maybe Spurs got a handle on it. They managed it, and I just think the intention was for every Spurs player to feel utterly uncomfortable inside the Orange Velodrome. It's a very nice stadium. It's a very cool stadium. But it's interesting, because we were talking about this, some of the journalists afterwards. It's a bit like the Premier League isn't really like that. There's noisy stadiums, but I wouldn't say there's anywhere you go inside and you're like, this is actually quite uncomfortable to play, and it makes it a really difficult experience. I'm trying to think of anywhere that I've come across, and I don't think it is. Most of the places that are fortresses are because, the team that plays there play very well and are very comfortable at home. Fans do great jobs, they support and everything, but I don't think in the Premier League we have that same kind of, it's a horrible place to go kind of feeling. It was really interesting as well. But, fair play to them. This is a Spurs team that's had its fair share of criticism this season about not really doing what everyone wants them to do or expects them to do at times, and not being the sexiest team in the world, I guess, in the way they play. But you know what? They showed fight last night. They did. They exhibited this mental resilience inside an intimidating atmosphere. And that is something, like I say, that they haven't won in Europe away for a little while. That is something they've struggled with. When you go to a noisy ground... Sorry. I am properly bunged up now. So I am going to keep going through, but unfortunately it's not going to sound very pleasant for you. I'm sorry. But they battled through, and they came out victorious. And that was also losing one of their star players in Sonny after, was it 28 minutes as well, with really painful whack to the face in an aerial challenge, like shouldered into his face. like I said, it did ride their luck a little bit. Kolasinac's header, I've still no idea. I've watched that one back, and I still have no idea how he's headed that wide. It was almost harder to do that than to put it at goal. And then Perisic obviously blocked a Alexis Sanchez. There was lots of Arsenal factored into this match with former Arsenal players. And yeah, Alexis Sanchez had a shot as well that Perisic had a brilliant block from. And yeah, so that second half could have gone differently. But like I say, I can't remember Lloris really having a save to make in that second half. And if anything, it was Spurs who probably threatened more, I'd say, at the other end. Obviously, was it 9 minutes into the second half? Harry Kane, who I thought was magnificent in the second half, with his hold-up play. He took a ball down the left-hand side of the pitch, did a classic winning a Harry Kane free kick, where they just get kind of frustrated with him and they end up taking him to the floor. Perisic puts in a beautiful, deep free kick to the back, well, not quite the back post, almost the back post, where Clement Longley rises up and flicks it on for his first. What a way to score your first Tottenham goal. I was a little bit concerned that we'd have another VAR moment, because he does give his marker a little bit of a shove beforehand to create the space. But I guess, is that part of the jostling? I suppose it probably is. And clearly VAR had no issue with it whatsoever. And yeah, so that's the first goal, the equaliser. And nice for Longley to score. Apparently had lots of family up in the stands as well, who'd come, obviously, because they live in the country. And Gianni Vio. It's another goal for the Gianni Vio set-piece collection. Spurs set-piece coach is rapidly proving to be their signing of the summer. He really is. He was... I think they've scored way more from set-pieces than anyone else. It's like you can't even question the impact he's made. It's been fantastic. But they weren't their only chances. You know, Kane... There were a few moments when the brilliant Rodrigo Bentancur, I so undermarked him by a point, at least in my rating. I gave him an 8, and I've watched back some of the stuff today that he was doing. I definitely should have put him up to at least a 9. He was so good. There was one where he got down the right and he crossed in for Kane, and Lopez just got his hand to it. There was another one where I think it was Emerson got the ball across to Kane, and again it was like just in front of the goal. Højbjerg hit the crossbar, which came from another, I think it was Bentancur, a bit of play down the left, some little fast feet, and then Lucas teed up Højbjerg. And yeah, Marseille pushed obviously in those final moments, feeling that they needed that winner. It was a weird night because it definitely was. At various points during the night, all 4 teams in the group were set to go through to the knockout stages because of the changing scorelines. It kept changing, but they couldn't find a way through, and Spurs did. And Ben Davies, Ben Davies got a foot in, which I don't think was meant as a pass. It was just him intercepting a ball. But what happened was it spanned the ball ahead of Kane, who turned, had loads of space. He looks up, and because everyone has piled up from Marseille, because the thing with Marseille, which is a little bit unfortunate for them, is that their bench, nobody from their bench told them that you don't have to win this. In terms of it, a draw would have been enough for them to get into the Europa League as the third place team, but they kept going for it. I'm just trying to think whether they still could have. I'm just going to check the tables because I'm intrigued to see whether, had they won, I feel like they're in a position. Yes, they were. Right. So the position was, just had to double check that. So even if they won, they weren't going to qualify because Frankfurt were already been on 10 points. So even if they'd won, they'd have been on 9 points. They wouldn't have had enough to go through. So essentially what nobody on the bench told them was that, lads, you can sit back now. We can't qualify for stay in the Champions League, but if you just take the point, that's enough to take you into third place and you go into the Europa League. Nobody told them that. I think I saw some quotes from Chancellor Mbemba afterwards saying it's a real lack of communication. So what they did, they pushed up for a winner they didn't need. which is really unfortunate for them. And in doing so, they left this gap just because I think all bar one player was back. Oh, actually, that reminds me, remember, there was another chance. Made a brilliant tackle on Kane as he ran into the box. And Kane also put the ball in the net, but he was offside as well. But yeah, Kane looks up. He's got Højbjerg sprinting just ahead of Brian Hill, plays into Højbjerg, goes through and hits a cracking shot in off the left-hand post. So yeah, it was a winner that really, I mean, whether they would have got it had Marseille not pushed on or not, I don't know. But clearly the space was there for them to do it. And yeah, what an ending. I loved the images. I kind of watched them back afterwards because obviously you're rewriting at that point when something happens that late in the 94th or 5th minute. I'd love to see Kane leading Højbjerg over to the Spurs fans who just say, just enjoy your moment. Like, enjoy exactly what you've just done. He was like an energizer bunny, Højbjerg, running up the pitch. I don't know how he manages it. He's incredible in terms of his fitness levels. And it wasn't like, so the Spurs players went mad, the Spurs staff went mad, the fans went mad, Conte went bananas up in the stand. He was just going crazy, hugging everyone. He essentially grabbed Greta Steinson like a bear hug and almost ripped his head off him at one point. I would love to know what Daniel Levy was making of it all. That new experience of having such a live wire of a football man behind him, just going bananas at everything, raging, screaming, then loving it. Yeah, it was mad. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the directors, Rebecca Kappelhorn, I just saw her at one point just look up. She just looked up to the heavens and went, like just a sigh of relief after the Højbjerg goal. And that's exactly what it was. It was a goal that brought like relief. And you know what? I think a little bit of pride Spurs brought back with them as well. You know, they've got through to the last 16 of the Champions League. Despite, you know, the criticism they've got this season. As I say, second remarkable comeback within the space of, 3 days? Technically, they kind of thought they'd done it as well against Sporting, only for that to be ruled out by VAR. So this team's got something about them when it comes to that. They've got a bit of character. They're not a weak side. They might make mistakes. They might be a pain in the backside to watch in the first half, which is something that has to be fixed. But they've got spirit. They've got character. They really do have a little bit of mental fortitude about them. That, you know, look, you can question the stand of the opposition, whatever you want to do, but it still takes a lot in that atmosphere to come back and do what they did. Yeah, but I do think Conte being up there, experience it all, and also having Levy sat near him, I think that was an important experience for both men, and we'll chat a little bit about that in the end. But you know, we have to kind of drill down a little bit into that first half because that is becoming an issue at the moment, and obviously they do the same. Let's say against Liverpool this weekend. You're going to get to points where you're not going to be able to recover from the first half. And, you know, essentially it's what happened against Newcastle as well. And I just find it odd that experienced players are making such daft mistakes. Like Eric Dyer. You know, you'll have heard me say Eric Dyer can do really good things that really mark him out as a very impressive centre-back. And he can do some things that you look at him and you wonder, like, have you just started playing football? Because there's like some really strange things he does, and he did one of them last night, which I still can't get my head around why it happened. He was going to the touchline, trying to stop the ball going out. It was near like the Marseille dugout. He was trying to stop the ball going out for a throw, but in doing so, hoofed it up into the air behind him and into the Spurs penalty box. It was that far a kick. And it left Longley and Davies all kinds of problems. This massive bouncing ball into the box. Alexis Sanchez is giving them a nightmare trying to get onto the ball. They cleared it. But it was a bit like, why did that happen? Why did it have to happen? What did you think was the good thing about booting the ball away from being a throw-in to being in your own box? It was bizarre. And yeah, this is kind of what he does. He does the odd little thing like that. And for a guy that I think's had a good season, really, on the whole, I think in the last couple of games he's just looked that little bit shaky. But it's quite interesting that, then when he doesn't play, was it Bournemouth, wasn't it? I was obviously away for that one, but I saw the bulk of it. But when you bring him back in, Spurs kind of look better with him in the team, and they do look better with Dyer in the team. But yeah, I found that really weird. Ben Davies, I felt first half there was a lot of poor passes from him, some big ones that could have led to big chances as well. Longley, interestingly, who I thought had a brilliant second half, was really, really good. First half, he was missing a lot of his passes. He had the lowest pass success rate at the back three, 75% as well. And this was the problem, was that every time Spurs were trying to get out, either they were failing with their passes from the back, or the front three were completely messing it up when it came to them. Lucas Moura, he got more dangerous as it went on, but I did feel that it wasn't a good night from him. He still looks incredibly rusty. He lost the ball. He had 61.1% pass success rate, and he gave the ball away 6 times with poor touches, which is far more than any other player on the pitch. And this stat shocked me. And it didn't shock me because I saw the first half, but it did show you how bad Spurs were at getting the ball up the pitch. Son, so he was on for half an hour, 28 minutes, 6 touches of the ball. 6 touches of the ball. How are you not giving one of your best players on the pitch the ball more than 6 times? He sent 2. He only had 3 passes, and he sent 2 of them to Marseille players. It was painful to watch. But what was even more painful was a horrible challenge. I was only saying, wasn't I, a couple of weeks ago about challenging for aerial balls, and maybe I don't know whether he's watched back that game. What was the game now? I forgot what it was. It's gone out of my head. But I don't know whether he's watched that back. He's analysed it with the coaches, and he's felt, okay, I definitely need to make sure I'm challenging for aerial kind of things, just even if it doesn't give. Oh, was it Arsenal? It was Arsenal. Just to stop the opposition getting that. That's going to annoy me now. You're going to tell me in the comments as well, and I'll work it out afterwards as well. And he went up for this challenge last night, and it was so unfortunate, the timing. The guy's shoulder, I can't remember who it was now, the guy's shoulder just straight into there. It was very unpleasant to watch. He went down, the crowd whistling, because obviously they didn't really know how bad it was. And when he got up, you could just see he was wobbly on his feet. They kind of ended up having to take him. I think Lucas Moura came over and kind of helped him off the pitch as well, and they went straight down the tunnel with him. From what we understand, after he got into the changing room, he started to feel a lot better. Christian Salini actually said afterwards the words, "It's not bad," about his injury. And he explained that Son was feeling much better in the changing room, was able to take part in the celebrations after the game. You've seen that team photo or squad photo afterwards where Sonny's like that. It looks like he's just been in a fight with Rocky Balboa. And he was due to have his scan today. I have been asking since I've returned back for any update. And literally as I went to do this, the last kind of I got from anyone within the club was that there was nothing imminent to come on that. But his scan will have been had today. Whether it's a case of allowing the swelling to go down, I don't know how it works. You'd hope that the fact that Stellini came out so quickly and said, it's not bad, but this is Tottenham and injuries, and we'll have to see what the scan brings with it. I'd imagine maybe we'll find something out tomorrow. If not, the press conference is on Friday, so we'll get a proper update from Conte. First time we'll have been able to speak to Conte for a while. He chose not to do the press conferences out in Marseille, which is his right as a suspended coach within the guidelines. He doesn't have to if he doesn't want to. So he's had a whole week off seeing this stupid face. But yeah, hopefully, hope Sonny's all right. Because it wasn't very nice to watch at all. Like I say, as soon as we've got any more on that, we'll let you know. What I would say is Bissouma came on, replaced Sonny. They switched to a 3-5-2 from the 3-4-3 they were playing in. And do you know what? I felt as the game wore on, he became more and more of a presence in the game. I felt he did well as it went on. He started off a little bit nervy, as the rest of the team did. But I did feel that he helped Spurs get up the pitch in that second half. And, also credit to Emerson Royale. I tweeted at half time, Emerson Royale's about to come on, and everyone's like, oh, God, like, of all the options, why are you bringing him on? Like, it's not a game changer, which is true. But in a way, he did kind of change the game in terms of he brought balance to the Spurs team just by being a right-footed player. Because, if you weren't aware, they started in a very kind of lopsided manner with probably more left-sided players that have ever played for Tottenham in the one game. Obviously, we had Ryan Sessegnon playing on the right, Perisic on the left. I don't think it did Sessegnon any favours. I felt sorry for him because he's got a bit of confidence at the moment. Scored a lovely goal against Bournemouth. Excuse me. Oh, so apologies for snotting. It doesn't sound good. I presume this is going to now be a cold for me. But for Sessegnon to score that goal against Bournemouth, and then I just feel like it drained his confidence playing on the right. I'm told that when he was young, I think it was Tom Barkley from The Sun told me, he used to cover them back then, that when he came up with Fulham, when they had that season where they got one promotion, he played quite a lot on the right as a winger. But he didn't look comfortable. He's not in the same position where he can come inside, cut in and shoot. He's doing more. He's got to do wing work. And it knocked his confidence. And when he did move to the left, they switched Perisic and him back over. He looked shaky. We mustn't forget, he's 22 years old. He is learning with every match. And he will have a game where I felt he played well against Bournemouth, scored a good goal. It started off a little bit iffy in that game, but I did feel he came back quite well. And he is going to have games like that as well, especially when he's playing on the wrong side. But there you go. So I think Emerson Royale coming in kind of brought that balance and allowed Perisic just to concentrate on being what he was. I thought he had an excellent second half. I mean, he was really, really good in the second half. But I think the thing that most frustrated me about the first half was that they're still doing this thing where they're naturally sitting back. And because they're passing so bad, they're just falling into this habit of defending. And look, I've said this before, we can all moan about the what we see as negative tactics, but Conte has come out. I saw that while I was away. I saw him last week. I saw him come out and say, I'm not telling them to do this. They are just sitting back. I don't want them to. I want them to be pressing. And this is what we've heard before. I've heard, definitely Poch said it. I feel like maybe Mourinho said it as well. And it is a little bit disturbing. And even Kane said, I got a quote from him. He said after the game, we've got to find the balance between dropping and pressing. At the moment, I think we're just dropping and sitting too deep. But then it all changed the second half. What was said at the half time, they had more energy. They did go back to pressing high up the pitch. Bentancur was brilliant, I must stress. He led so much of the pressing with that ridiculous energy that he's got. And Hugo Lloris really, I think, nailed an interesting aspect of it. He talked about the psychological battle almost that went on the pitch, because he said that you could feel Spurs could feel Marseille in the first half had no fear of losing. They just like, let's go for it, lads. Let's see if we can get a goal. Fantastic. And they did. And then he felt that in the second half, because they had that goal, they suddenly had that fear of losing their advantage because they didn't know about the Frankfurt score and they didn't know that a draw was enough. So, yeah, he kind of could sense that fear of them losing the 3 points. And that was when Spurs suddenly got the momentum back. They kind of took advantage of that. And yeah, that was why we ended up with Højbjerg making that ridiculous run. Still don't know how he did it. For me, Højbjerg and Bentancur again. There were a few standout. The second half performances, I can tell you, I feel Højbjerg, Bentancur, Kane, Perisic and Longley were absolute standouts for me. I thought they were all really, really good in that second half. But Højbjerg and Bentancur are just... They are linchpins of everything good Spurs have been doing. I think when Spurs have played well, it's often because Bentancur and or Højbjerg has played well on the pitch. And I think it's I guess what would you call it? A tribute. I think it's testament. It's the legacy of Gianpiero Ventroni. Is that the ridiculous fitness levels of these two guys who have got probably, other than the wing-backs, the most energetic role required on the pitch. They are the engine of Conte's team. I think few players better exemplify his work, Ventroni's work, than Bentancur and Højbjerg. Their fitness levels are ridiculous. Like I say, that to see the 27-year-old Højbjerg, not to say that 27 is old or anything, but to see him in the 95th minute after everything, a point was enough for Spurs, but to still see him bursting up that pitch from his own box to the other box to score with a rocket of a finish. It wasn't even like a I'm knackered shot. It was a powerful shot. It reminded me, it actually took me back to Korea and watching the Spurs players, Ventroni putting them through those horrible pitch-long sprints, because that was exactly what he did. He was putting into practice exactly what Ventroni had worked with him on. The heat and humidity of Korea, I guess it probably feels like nothing when you're doing it in Marseille, it was a mild night, but it wasn't the heat and the humidity of Korea. And Højbjerg's attacking stats now, they're there for all to see. 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 in goal involvements in total in 18 matches. And this is a player who's not really been expected to do that. That's not really expected to be his role. I actually asked him in the presser before the match, I asked him, where's that come from? Where's that attacking end product now come from? I said, is it just something that you've evolved into being? Because he did start off as an attacking player, but have you evolved kind of your game to almost return to that? Or is it the coaches? And he was quite interesting, his answer. He said he didn't actually think it was a natural byproduct of the actual coaching. He said it was kind of a bit of the whole him feeling comfortable in Conte's system. He said a lot of the players who feel like they're part of the spine of this team, understanding what Conte wants. He said, in the moment you've got that, you can purely concentrate on your game, and it gives you that confidence. And he said he thinks that's coming out now in the way when he looks for don't forget, against Bournemouth, that ball to Sessegnon was brilliant. His shot for his goal, Højbjerg, last night, and his pass against Bournemouth were both things that Harry Kane would have been proud of. And this is a player, Højbjerg, sometimes, we question, or certainly fans do, his technical ability. And I do feel that game's kind of on leaps and bounds that side of his game. And then you got Bentancur alongside him. Bentancur is rapidly racing up my list of favourite Spurs players at the moment. We mustn't forget this is a 3-time Serie A winner. So he is a guy that knows how to win. And he's brought that winning mentality with him. But also, I feel like he's thrown himself into learning and adapting to the English game. And he started off well, but I actually feel he's now at a whole new level in the way he plays. He is one of the fittest players on the pitch. He just motored up and down it yesterday, and he's been doing that in all the recent games. But yesterday, like I say, he was running up, he was pressing, he was involved in so much of the good stuff Spurs did. He kind of ran himself into the ground. He really did. He was leading the press. He's a little bit of, like I think I said this before, there's a Moussa Dembele-esque nature about the way he controls the ball and he uses it. His composure. Yeah, I do. It makes me smile when I think of kind of some of the stuff he does. He will occasionally give it away, but that's the risky nature of the role he has. That's going to happen, and he's going to do it in some dodgy moments, dodgy areas, which is what people used to complain in Italy he would do. But I'd say, bearing in mind it's a faster game in England, I don't think he's done it as much. We've seen it, but I don't think he's done it as much as surely he should have done, swapping the slower-paced Italian game to the Premier League. We'll see fitness where he's at. Apologies for starting again. He was feeling that hamstring towards the end of the game. He really was. But he's a strange one because I don't know whether he just decides I can't feel pain now, but he felt his hamstring, then got up and sprinted for something, like to try and make a tackle or press. I can't remember what it was now. Then he eventually had to go off. And then when Højbjerg scored, he sprinted about 50 yards up the touchline to be involved in celebrations. And it's just like, right, okay, I don't know whether he's okay. Is that adrenaline? Are we going to kind of pay for that later? On a little side note, Skippy came on for Benzema. It was only like, whatever it was, the final probably 10 minutes if you include the added time. And I felt he came into a position where it was high stakes and the crowd were intimidating, and I thought he did quite well as well. If you watch it back, he won a lot of little tackles and even little things like stopping around and knocking the ball out of play with a challenge or an interception. And he had a good little kind of cameo from him as well. Like I say, Longley and Perisic as well both impressed me. Longley, the goal was superb, but I also thought he defended really well in the second half as well. Perisic, he just got better and better as it wore on. His delivery from the set pieces is superb, and his link-ups with Kane were quite good as well, I felt at times. That's obviously something he's got to build as Sonny, but I do think he's quality, and I think he'll do that. When you've got two quality players like Sonny and Perisic, I think that'll come as well. And then, obviously he made that great block as well to deny Sanchez. And then you've got Harry Kane. He was quite quiet in the first half, along with everyone else. But that second half, he used all of his wiles, his ability to keep the ball, win free kicks. Like I say, there's a couple of moments where he maybe could have had chances himself. He spread the ball so well, like he normally does. It's almost like eased the pressure valve. He just turned it and it just allowed Spurs time. When Kane holds the ball up like that, that's when they're not going to sit deep because they know they can get up that pitch. And he needs others to be able to do that as well. He hasn't really, weirdly, because he scored so many goals in the Premier League, but he actually in the Champions League has struggled a bit. Or quite a lot really for the goals, but I actually think his performances have been quite good in various matches, and ultimately, he's played his part in getting them through to knockout stages. And it was a weird one because, like I say, Conte would have seen his experienced players splutter and really not play their part in the first half, but in the second half they all stood up for him. And they were rewarded. They got 2 days off. So they got today, Wednesday, and tomorrow, Thursday off as well. Which, this is the thing, you can get them in. They've got Sunday, haven't they, the match? So they've got Friday and Saturday to work on stuff. And just a lot of these players just need to take their brains out of it. And they earned it. They have earned it. Because, now, the opponents... I'm filming this literally... Oh, I've said literally again. I'm filming this just as some of the games have kicked off in the Champions League. So I don't know at this point some of the opponents, but these are the potentials. You've got Club Brugge. Sorry, these are the definites. Club Brugge, Borussia Dortmund, Inter Milan, and then you've got the potentials are PSG or Benfica, AC Milan or Salzburg, Leipzig or Shakhtar Donetsk. So... some interesting ones there. You've got the Inter Milan narrative, if Conte were to go back there. You've got Club Brugge would be a nice one. I've never been to Bruges. I'd quite like to see that. Austria, never been to either. There's a lot of games in there that you, on paper, would back Spurs to progress with. Obviously, you don't really want PSG. But other than that, they're all games that Spurs should feel that they could win. And that's what that winner did, I guess, putting them up into top spot. So, yeah. What does it all mean in terms of going forward? So, weirdly, I was having a conversation with a couple of journalists before, and I'd said to, I think it was Sam Dean from The Telegraph, who's a lovely chap, who I said to ahead of the game, because he was like, kind of, what does it mean? What does it mean if Spurs were to progress? And I kind of said then, and I feel it even more now, it gives Conte more power in the January transfer window and what he wants. It does. It kind of changes the nature of what they can do and what they need. Not what they need, what they can do and what he can maybe push for in this January transfer window, more so than it would have done. It was, like I say, quite apt that you saw Conte celebrating wildly with Daniel Levy in the shot as well, because Levy and Conte and Paratici are now going to have to plot exactly what happens. And I think they could do it with that little bit more oomph now because of this Champions League progression. It gives them a confidence on the pitch, but it also, I think, smoothens the road, I guess, for them in the January transfer window a little bit in what they can do. I mean, finances alone. So reaching the round of 16 earns Spurs an additional 8.2 million in prize money alone. And that's without it even taking into account TV revenue, gate receipts, and more various bits and pieces you get from that. Selling food, drink, whatever you want to say. But even simply winning the match on the night gave them more money. So for a win in the group stages, you get 2.4 million, and for a draw, you get 800,000. So that win here goal actually earned them, another 1.4 million. Oh my goodness, I can't get 1.6 million. You can tell I'm knackered and really bugged up right now even. So that alone just rolls in the money, that competition. It's such a money-spinning competition. But also on the other side of it, being in the Champions League knockout stages is a massive pull for prospective players, targets that you want to bring in as well, because obviously you can make changes. Players can come into Champions League squads now. And in what's going to be a really busy market in the January transfer window because of the World Cup, splitting the season, you're going to have teams reacting to what happens in that tournament, whether it be injuries or players they decide they want to buy, and also just whatever happened in the first half of this fragmented season. For Spurs to be able to say, Champions League football, it is a big thing. It's players want to, they may see that as an opportunity to go and win the Champions League. Yes, Spurs are going to have to do a hell of a lot of improving if they ever want to dream of that. But were the Spurs side that reached the final in 2019 the best team around? No, they weren't. They were rubbish at points in the second half of that season in the Premier League. So you never know what can happen in a cup competition, and especially if you can get a little bit of momentum behind you, I guess. So yeah, from what I understand, the summer was about improving not only the quality but also the quantity of the squad. As you'll have heard Conte said a million times, the numerical aspect of the squad. That's not to say they were just bringing in any old body from the side and chucking them into the squad, but it was a case also of getting the numbers up to where Conte wanted them to be and having enough players for each role. And now, from what I understand, the January transfer window is going to be purely focused on that quality side. So he doesn't really want, or they don't want, club as a whole, they don't really want a bloated squad. They don't want more than they've currently got, which is roughly 2 for each position, apart from right wing back, where there's about 75 players that can play there, and still even Perisic plays there, but there you go. So now it's about, I guess, changing the pieces and saying, right, okay, so we've got 2 people in that position, but we can let one of them go and we can try and upgrade them. And that's what it's about. I saw, because I wrote a piece on this earlier, and I saw some places, the aggregator accounts just took the fact that I'd said, it was about quantity, and now they're going about quality. That's made it sound like I was saying in summer they were just like, yeah, he'll do. Get him over here because he can play left centre back. That's not quite what I meant. Now it's more they don't have to worry about the quantity. they have to worry more about, right, okay, let's go and get him because he's an upgrade on here and we can let this player go out here, whether it's sale or loan. Obviously, the key ones will be just giving Conte, I guess, the options to change games. That's the biggest thing for him. I think he's felt that he hasn't entirely trusted the options he's had. So when two players that he does trust, and Kulusevski and Richarlison, go out of the... there we go. Oh, 1 second. Literally, as I'm doing this, I think we're about to have a little bit on Sonny. So I think it's coming reasonably, one of those where it's not imminent, but I think it is actually coming. So what I'm going to do, it's going to come before the end of this video. Literally just had been pinged a few messages from people inside the club. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that. So you are going to see me occasionally look to the side because I think it's on its way. But it might not be for another 5 to 10 minutes or so. So when it does, I'll be able to talk about it briefly. There you go. That's the beauty of having the ability to communicate while I'm still doing that. So let's hope I don't forget when I lose my train of thought and forget about it. So I will come back to that. So if you're watching this, this is going to be very confusing to you. And if you've got bored and shut off before I've said that, you'll be thinking, why is he saying there's nothing imminent when that, from what I'm told, it wasn't imminent at that point when I said it, but it is on its way. So yeah, don't worry. I think about 5 minutes time, 6 minutes time, I'll be able to talk about it. So bear with me. Thank goodness, at least I was able to get that while I'm doing this. Otherwise, it would have been a really stupid thing where I can't talk about it. And I've said that it's not coming, but it is. Right, that will come. So when that comes, we'll deal with that. This is so ultra professional, isn't it? So yeah, where was I? Okay. So he hasn't had those options. He's clearly has missed a Kulusevski alternative. And from what I understand, Brian Hill will be allowed, if they get a deal and he wants to go and they can find this kind of alternative they'd like, Brian Hill will be allowed to go out and play regular game time. That's all he really wants to do. He's very talented, but of course he does have that slightly lightweight side to him. I do think he's looked quite good when he's come on in recent games. However, there was a moment last night when he surged up the pitch and you were like, oh, this is a big moment for him, and he got knocked off the ball. And it was a bit like, oh no, you have played back into the hands of Antonio Conte's belief in you. But Conte, to be fair, he does say that about Brian Hill in that he does feel he's one of the cleverest players and he takes on a lot of stuff. And he actually says you can trust him defensively, but he does get knocked off the ball. And that is something, he's only 21. That can be developed as long as it doesn't detract from the other side to his game as well. So from what I understand, they will allow him to go out on loan if they can get a perfect kind of alternative player who is more of a direct alternative to Kulusevski. Because clearly, not having Kulusevski, they have suffered in that aspect from having or not having him, because he's a rare quality he's got, that he can create. He's a playmaker, but he's also got an incredible work rate. And I feel like Richarlison and Sonny are probably more direct players that aren't the same kind of ones. So if they can get someone else like that in the January transfer window, and that is the aim, then that makes the squad much better in terms of the options that Conte has. I think also at the back, you've got Japhet Tanganga, who's barely played any minutes. For him, it will be about potentially a loan. Whether they sell him, I guess it would depend on what the offer was. With Hill, I really hope they don't sell him, because I do think he'll become a top player. I really like Japhet Tanganga. I do think he could go on to be a very good defender. I just can't see it's going to happen at Spurs. So I think with a heavy heart, if they were to sell him, I do think that he could. Yeah, I don't think he's going to make it at Spurs, to be honest. I don't, unless unless there's an injury and he gets a run in the team and he gets his confidence up and develops, I can't see it happening. His injuries don't help him. Whereas I think if AC Milan were interested in him in the summer, maybe if he goes somewhere like that, he kind of rebuilds his career in a way. He's still young as well. What is he, 23 maybe? 22 maybe? Oh, I can't remember. But he'll, if he goes in the January window, then of course it allows Spurs to look then at another centre-back to come into that equation. And another player that Conte would trust. And the same applies for the whole squad. If they get an offer or anything for one of their players, or they see a player out there on the market that they're like, we can get him, and that is a serious upgrade on whoever, A, B, C, D, whoever is in the team, then they'll try and do that, and they will try and make that happen. There should be more money. We talk about that boost in the Champions League money that's come in. I'm going to constantly look for this Sonny update, which is on its way. It's not there yet. I'm presuming it will be. The extra money for the Champions League, like I just spoke about, that's coming in as well. But also the revenue that will be pouring in from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium being full, open, busily used. The money spinning NFL games, concerts, sporting events. Tyson Fury fighting Derek Chisora. It's all British WBC World Championship for heavyweight championship fight coming up next month. All of that brings in so much money. Then on top of that, you've got the remaining 50 million of that £150 million capital increase that was made available by ENIC at the end of last season. So from what I can tell, looking at Company's House, the club have only declared an equity injection of 100 million so far, which was failed in late June. And of course, we know there is an incentive for ENIC to make the remaining £50, that'd be rubbish, it is a 50 quid note, £50 million available, and that may be drawn in tranches, they call it, until the end of this year. And the reason it's kind of in their best interest to do that is because obviously in the original statement, they said about the £150 million, if drawn in full, ENIC's ownership of the club could see an increase from its current level of 85.6% to circa 87.5% on conversion. So yeah, it's in their best interest to do it. They get a bigger stake in the club, and obviously it's another £50 million for the kitty, as it were, plus all that extra money that I was just speaking about that goes in. So there should be money available. There should be. I'm not using any excitable words to describe what money might be available, but obviously if they sell anyone as well, that only adds to it as well. But it's all about giving Conte what he needs as well. We've been here before, we've said this before, but the World Cup and the break ahead gives them so much time to plan. It gives them so much time to launch into what they want to do. And, Paratici is an experienced man. He knows how to build kind of title-winning squads. He's done that at Juventus as well. So it's not like he's new to his game. And now he's got a few transfer windows of knowing what's right for the Premier League. He's got Conte telling him what's right for the Premier League. The new look kind of scouting team is in place as well, with Andy Scolding as well, and Greta Steinsson obviously as his I'll say underlings. That sounds bad, but the people kind of also helping inform his knowledge of the Premier League as well. Just checking for this Sonny statement that's coming. Oh, please don't be a bad one. Here we go. He's going to go undergo surgery. Right, okay. So Sonny will undergo surgery to stabilise a fracture around his left eye. Right, there's no update in terms of a timeline. Following surgery, Son will commence rehabilitation with our medical staff, and we shall update supporters further in due course. See, I don't know with fractures around that's a nightmare. What a shame. I don't know whether that is something that you can wear a mask. I don't even know how that works. That you'd imagine that would be a bit iffy. I don't know. This is the thing. Literally, that's all I can go on. It's happened mid-video, so at least I was able to get that in there and talk to you about it. But we'll see. I don't want to speculate because I don't want to say anything more about it. I'm going to ask around and find out a little bit more on that. Just see if I can get anything as I'm doing it. Yeah, we'll find out. Oh, poor Sonny. That's rubbish. That's really rubbish. He did look in a hell of a lot of pain, to be honest. He really did. But there you go. Sonny man. Right. We'll see. I might do a little short video if I get kind of a little bit more on that as well. I feel so gutted for him. I really, really hope that that's nothing that keeps. Obviously, there's only 3 fixtures left until the World Cup. I just hope it doesn't keep him out. Literally, I've just been told. Literally, that was that he should be allowed to play with a mask on. But it all depends on his recovery and the recovery period and how that works for him. But yes, so that's a little bit of good news. I am able to add in there that he should hopefully be allowed to play with a mask. So fingers crossed that might not be too serious in that respect in terms of length of time. I guess it does depend on his recovery period. But there you go. Oh, I'm really gutted about that. Sorry, this is a really weird way to kind of for the video to go, but it's almost like doing a live video. Well, it is like doing a live video because I don't edit these or anything like that. But yeah, we'll see. I'm continuously asking the question, so if I get any more on that, I shall let you know. So yeah, I just got this Conte quote as well about transfers that I should probably say. That was while I Right, okay. There's no timeline at this moment in time. They don't know about the World Cup. They don't know about anything yet. It all very much depends on how the surgery goes, whether it's a success, and his recovery time, which obviously depends on how the surgery goes, and which is pretty much why Spurs have put a further update in due course. Oh, poor Sonny. Fingers crossed for him. Seriously, I hope it all is good for him and that he recovers quickly and that he can wear a mask in the World Cup if that is the case. Like I say, very much dependent on how the surgery goes and how quick his recovery is. I'm trying to think, he's normally quite a quick healer, but I don't know how it all works with the face. How absolutely rubbish for him. Right, back to the transfer stuff. Conte said last week while I was off, I think the club understand very well the importance of bringing in important players, good players, in January. I'm not the person who has to explain this to my club. The season will be more difficult than last season because after the transfer market, you've seen many, many teams have spent a lot. You have to face a lot of big teams. For sure, there will be the time to speak with the club to understand what is the best solution for us. This is not the right moment to answer. Since November now, and after 1 year, I understood a lot of things. The first moment for me was really difficult to understand. Now I'm going into the Tottenham world. I understand very well what our situation is, what is our position, what is our starting point, how long is our path to be competitive and to fight for something important. Now for sure my knowledge about Tottenham is more complete. For this reason I will be prepared for the moment when we speak with the club and understand what is best for the future. For now we need to focus on the present because we want to do our best in the present. My desire, my will and of the players is to do our best and give satisfaction to the fans. That is the best aspiration of everybody. For the other situations, we'll see the right moment. So, big break to come after these 3 games. See, they've got to get through it first. Obviously, there's Conte's contract as well to be discussed. Like I say, people kind of do keep forgetting in the media that Spurs have this option to extend it to the summer of 2024. So, at the worst case scenario, unless he just suddenly quits, which it's Conte, he could. It does mean there's less pressure on them jumping in to give him a jump in salary for one of the world's best paid managers. But I do also think that, you look at it, Spurs are through to knockout stage of the Champions League. They've got the potential of ending the first half of the season in the Premier League's top 3 or 4, depending on how this result goes at the weekend. It kind of feels like a moment where he deserves to be rewarded. I do think that. And then that has a knock-on effect. Look, the football hasn't been the most eye-catching. Of course it hasn't. But to be just 5 points off the top of the table without hitting top gear, it won't have gone unnoticed. And neither would the improvement over the last year. It's a year today since he joined, and I do think people forget sometimes how rubbish Spurs were before he arrived, in those months before he arrived. He has taken them to a level that we haven't seen them since Poch times. It's just that is the case. Back in the top four, back into the Champions League knockout stages as well. It's a different Tottenham Hotspur again, and I do think the style of play will improve with the ability to have players that he wants in that position. With the ability to the players that he wants will make his system work better. Their goals will come. It won't be as stale as it has been, I guess, and bland at times as well. And you'd hope the players won't sit back naturally as well. And I do think handing him a new contract also gives that little bit of stability, as much as stability as you can get with Antonio Conte, but it gives stability to the club stars, the likes of Harry Kane, who see him kind of committing as well, and it increases the chances of them, of course, committing. It's like a knock-on effect. And I do feel like backing him with the right transfers in this January window could be really crucial. It's such a pivotal part. And I just feel Daniel Levy sitting up there alongside Conte and hearing things from a football man's perspective during a game, it just would have given him a real first-hand understanding of where kind of Spurs are, but also what they can be. And it might, that might be a defining moment in the club season. It could be. Who knows? I hope it is. I hope it really is a good thing that is something that we kind of feel the repercussions of in a good way. I hope so. We don't want bad repercussions. We've seen too many of those as well. So there you go. It's around Sonny's left eye as well, I forgot to say. So there you go. Right. I'm sorry for the stop-start fragmented nature of the end of that and my snotty noises that I was making throughout as well. But really glad we were able to get the Sonny stuff in there as well. There's nothing like the club feeling that they're not about to put something out, and then Sunday late in the night they do get the results and information they were waiting for, so they were able to do it. I think the feeling was it was going to come tomorrow, but they decided to put it out tonight. I don't know whether that's maybe to do with the Korean audience as well, perhaps. I don't know, because there's obviously a lot of interest over there. Of course there is in Sonny. Like I say, he should be allowed to play in a mask, but when he can do that will massively depend on his recovery and how the surgery goes before that. So fingers crossed for Sonny, honestly. He would be wonderful to have him at the World Cup. It really would. It was. And as soon as I get any kind of time frame, I'll let you know. I really will. So there you go. Right, I'm going to head off now. It's been a long video. Sorry about that. Those who have stuck with it. Going to head off now. Obviously, Conte press conference Friday, Liverpool at the weekend, Nottingham Forest Carabao Cup. Trying to think what the next video might be. Maybe Monday night. If I can, I'll try and fit it in ahead of the after Liverpool and ahead of Forest, and then we'll go from there. Right, time to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.